The settlement said a widow had finally lost her mind. They watched Rebecca Reeves tunnel into a towering haystack, and they laughed, especially Dorothy Vance.
Living like field mice. Rebecca, that stack won't keep you warm when the snow comes.
But Rebecca didn't look up from her work. Her daughter Charlotte stood nearby, clutching a thin blanket.
Don't listen to them, sweetheart. This stack will be our fortress.
Charlotte said nothing, but her eyes were full of doubt.
You'd do better to beg at the church door than burrow in a hay pile, but then you always were too proud.
Rebecca's jaw tightened. She'd heard enough.
Pride filled my husband's grave. Number. This haystack will shelter us when your fine cabin cracks in the January cold.
A gust of wind rattled the dry stalks. Winter was coming fast. Charlotte stepped closer, pressing into her mother's side. They were alone, and the haystack was all they had. For hours, Rebecca tore at the packed straw, her fingers raw and bleeding.
Mother, your hands are bleeding. Let me help.
It's nothing, sweetheart. Just a few more armfuls, and we'll have a proper roof.
In the village, Dorothy stopped at the mercantile, her voice carrying through the open door.
Have you seen those field mice? Burrowing in the hay like lunatics?
As dusk fell, a bitter wind cut across the field, rattling the dry hay. Rebecca straightened inside the hollow, pressing a hand to her aching back, her face drawn with exhaustion.
It's getting colder, Mama. Are we sleeping inside tonight?
Not yet. A few more hours, and we'll have a proper roof over our heads.
The hollow was deep enough to shelter them, but Rebecca's strength was nearly gone. The first snow came early that year, a thin veil of white that dusted the haystack while Rebecca was still digging. She and Charlotte dragged their blankets inside, piling straw thick against the curved walls.
There. It's not much, but it's ours. Nobody can take this from us.
It's warm. Mama, how is it so warm?
The packed straw trapped their body heat, turning the hollow into a cocoon.
Hay is nature's quilt, sweetheart. It keeps the cold out and the love in.
Outside, the snow thickened, sealing the entrance with a soft white mound.
Will we be able to get out tomorrow?
If the snow's too deep, we'll dig a little door. Don't worry. Despite the warmth, Dorothy's mocking laugh still echoes in this hollow, no matter how cozy we make it.
As the days shortened and the cold deepened, Dorothy's voice became a constant hum of ridicule in the village.
Those field mice are probably frozen solid by now. I told you pride comes before a fall.
Rebecca heard the talk when she came to trade for a bit of flour. The shopkeeper's eyes slid away from her.
Why do they hate us, Mama? We haven't done anything wrong.
Because they're scared. Charlotte, scared of anything different, but we'll show them.
But Dorothy didn't stop. She made sure the whole settlement knew the widow was living like an animal.
It's warm in here, but it still feels like a cage sometimes.
That night, Rebecca knelt in the hollow, her lips moving in a silent prayer for strength. Outside, the frost grew thicker on the hay, a white shell encasing their borrowed home.
We just have to hold on. Spring will come eventually.
Days passed, and the haystack held its warmth like a stubborn secret while the world outside froze solid.
It's still so warm in here, Mama. Even with all that frost outside.
Rebecca poked a small ventilation hole near the roof, letting out stale air as her breath steamed. Each morning, the tunnel to the outside shrank further, packed snow turning to ice around the entrance. From her cabin, Dorothy squinted at the haystack, a thin thread of steam rising from its crown.
The hay's still dry. No frost on the inner walls. Maybe this will work.
Look, Mama. I can see the whole field through this little gap.
But the world, through that gap, was a frozen wasteland, and every day the drift outside grew taller.
It can't really be cozy in there. It's just hay. It has to be freezing.
Inside the golden cocoon, Rebecca felt a creeping dread. They were safe, but they were also trapped. That night, Dorothy fed her last log to the fire and shivered under thin quilts.
It's colder inside than out. How is that possible?
Miles away, Rebecca broke a piece of hard bread and handed half to Charlotte.
We have enough for a few more days, don't we, Mama?
Barely. But we have each other, and that's more than some.
The lantern oil was running low, but the hollow held its warmth. From her window, Dorothy saw the faint amber glow of the haystack and felt a stab of something dangerously close to envy.
They're probably freezing over there. They must be.
But her firewood pile was gone, and the frost was spreading on the inside of her window. For the first time, Dorothy lay awake, wondering if she had been wrong. A brief thaw came, and with it, a fur trader. He heard the story of the field mice. Curiosity got the better of him, and he rode out to see the haystack for himself. He pressed his hand to the haystack and felt the warmth. A marvel, he told the shopkeeper. Word spread. A few villagers admitted they'd noticed the stack seemed dry, no frost. Whispers began to challenge Dorothy's certainty.
They're just a reckless widow and her child. Luck, not skill. It won't last.
But some now looked at the haystack with new eyes, wondering if they had misjudged. The next afternoon, a shout came from outside the snow tunnel.
We're fine in here. God's good, and the hay keeps us warm.
The trader left, shaking his head. But when he told the boarding house that night, the doubt spread like frost. Dorothy heard the talk and clenched her jaw. She would not be humbled by a haystack. The hollow's small store of food had dwindled to a handful of crumbs and a heel of bread. And
I'll have to go to the village, even if it means facing the cold and their stares.
Don't leave me, Mama. It's so far. And what if you can't get back?
I'll be quick. Keep the lantern burning, and don't open the door for anyone but me.
she pushed through the snow tunnel, the wind slicing her cheeks as she stepped into the frozen world. The trek was agony. Each step sank into knee-deep snow, the distant village barely a smudge against the gray. By the time she returned, her fingers were blue, and the sack of flour weighed like stone on her back. She fell through the opening, gasping, the warm air of the hollow stinging her frozen skin.
Mama, you are frozen solid. Don't ever leave me again.
No more trips. This stack is all that stands between us and the grave.
Weeks passed, and the haystack stood firm, while the settlement's homes began to groan under the weight of snow. Roofs sagged, chimneys blocked with ice. Only the haystack seemed to breathe, a warm breath rising into the frozen air. Dorothy broke the film of ice on her water bucket each morning and heard the villagers murmur about the widow's uncanny shelter.
It's just hay. It can't be real. But the frost on my window is thicker than a hand's width.
At dusk, she would watch the amber glow of the haystack from her doorway, her breath clouding, and hate the hope it stirred in her chest. One night, a neighbor's cabin door froze shut, and they had to break a window to escape.
If my door freezes, what then? But I'd sooner freeze than beg at that hay pile.
Yet, every day that passed, the haystack stood like a taunt, warm and alive while the cold squeezed tighter.
They have a child in there. If something happens,
That night, Dorothy lay in the dark, listening to the wind, and for the first time, the silence of her cold cabin felt like a judgment. The old trapper's warning spread through the valley. A killing storm was coming, the worst in a generation. Rebecca crawled outside, pulled armfuls of fresh straw from the lee side, and packed them thick against the inner walls.
Mama, will the storm break through? I'm scared.
No storm has broken us yet, and this one won't either.
But as she spoke, she glanced at the darkening sky and hurried to strengthen the walls, her breath clouding in the cold. In her drafty cabin, Dorothy watched through ice-crusted glass, the haystack's warm amber glow a cruel, bitter taunt.
if that storm hits, this cabin will be my coffin. But I won't beg that woman for anything.
The wind rose, moaning through the haystacks like a living thing.
It sounds like a monster, Mama.
Rebecca pulled her close, and they waited as the wind shrieked outside. The blizzard struck like a white wall, hammering the haystack with brutal gusts.
Hold tight, Charlotte. The hay is thick. It's kept us safe before.
Mama, it sounds like the world is ending.
Rebecca had no answer. only her arms wrapped around her daughter, a human shield against the noise. In Dorothy's cabin, the fire was dead, and the cold crept in like a thief, stealing warmth from her bones.
I am going to die here, in my own house for pride.
She stumbled to the door, but the handle was a lump of ice, her fingers sticking painfully to the frozen metal.
No escape. The window is iced shut. I am caged like an animal.
Outside, the storm screamed louder, burying the world in white. Inside the haystack, the hollow held, warm and alive, while the blizzard raged. But survival speaks louder than pride. In that bitter hour, Dorothy Vance made her choice.
I can't die here. Not for a grudge.
She wrapped herself in every blanket she owned, grabbed a fire poker, and beat the ice from the door latch until it gave. The wind tore the door from her hands as she plunged into the blinding white fury. Nothing but a prayer and a desperate hope.
That light, it's so far. Just keep moving.
She stumbled and crawled, fighting through drifts that swallowed her to the waist, the cold burning her lungs.
Please let there be room for me. Please be warm.
The haystack loomed ahead, a giant shadow touched with a soft amber glow that seemed impossible in that frozen world.
God have mercy. If that woman has a heart, she'll open the wall.
Her frozen hand pressed against the packed hay, and she prayed. Inside the hollow, Rebecca pressed her ear to the hay wall. A faint scratch, then a desperate human cry.
Mama, what is that? It sounds like a wounded animal.
Rebecca listened, her face hardening. The voice was faint, but she knew it. Dorothy.
It's her, the woman who called my child a field mouse. She's out there, freezing.
Don't open it, Mama. She was so mean. What if she brings the cold in?
Rebecca closed her eyes. The warmth of the hollow pressed around her, a gift she was about to gamble. Another weak scrape, a sob. Please. The wind carried the word through the straw.
Charlotte, I can't let a soul freeze at our door. Not even hers.
Tears streamed down her face as she grabbed the wooden paddle. She knew this might cost them everything.
Stand back, sweetheart. Pray I am not making a terrible mistake.
Rebecca swung the wooden paddle, splintering the hay wall until a narrow gap tore open. A howl of wind and a blast of ice-filled air nearly knocked her backward. She reached into the blinding snow, seized a frozen limb, and hauled Dorothy's limp body through the gap. Dorothy collapsed on the straw floor, shivering violently, ice crusted in her hair.
Mama, the cold, the light's dying.
Rebecca and Charlotte stuffed blankets and loose straw into the breach, fighting the sucking wind until it sealed. They dragged Dorothy closer to the lantern, her faint breath misting the air. The hollow felt smaller. The warmth thinned. But the wall held. Rebecca pulled Charlotte close, checking her fingers for frost. They were still warm. Outside, the blizzard screamed on. Inside, 3 heartbeats fought the cold together. Rebecca chafed Dorothy's blue fingers, trying to rub life back into them.
We need to warm her fingers, Charlotte. Find another blanket, quickly.
She can have mine. It's the warmest one.
Charlotte spread her blanket over Dorothy and pressed close, sharing her small body's warmth.
I am sorry, so sorry. Field mice, I was wrong.
Hush. Save your strength. We'll talk later.
The lantern flickered low on its last oil, and the 3 bodies pressed into one another like survivors of a shipwreck. Outside the wind shrieked, but inside, the hay drank in their whispered breaths and gave back silence. Rebecca closed her eyes for a moment, letting a sliver of hope take root. Charlotte rested her head on her mother's lap, watching the woman who had once laughed at them, now warmed by their mercy. By morning, the wind had spent its strength, leaving a thick, muffled silence over the valley.
Mama, the little gap I used to look through is just white. We're buried deep.
I mocked you, called you field mice, and you saved my life. I am so ashamed.
It's past. Right now, we need to stay alive. That's all that matters.
The storm was dying, but the snow had sealed them in a frozen tomb with no way to call for help.
How will anyone find us, Mama? We only have a few bites of bread left.
They'll come looking when the snow lets them. We just have to hold on.
But the air was growing stale, and the lantern had only a few hours of light left.
I've been a burden since I crawled in. If you run out of air because of me.
Rebecca shook her head and pulled both woman and child closer, knowing that survival now depended on someone outside digging through the drift that had become their wall. By midday, the village elders sent a search party looking for survivors of the killing storm. They found cabins with collapsed roofs and doors sealed by ice, no fire, no life. Dorothy Vance's cabin was dark and empty, her door hanging open. Snow drifted inside. Then one of them pointed toward the far field, the haystack. Maybe the widow and her child were still there. Maybe dead, but they had to check. As they rode closer, a thin column of steam rose from the buried stack like a ghostly signal. One man dismounted and pointed, his breath frosting. There, that's no chimney smoke. It's breath from inside. They grabbed shovels and began to tear at the frozen wall of snow and hay. After long minutes, a shovel punched through into empty space, and a puff of warm air escaped. Then, a small voice from inside. "Mama, they found us." The men tore at the frozen hay. When the hole widened, warm air bathed their faces. Rebecca crawled through, her face smudged but eyes bright with unbroken will. Charlotte followed, clutching a blanket, and turned to watch Dorothy stagger out. Dorothy's cheeks were raw with frost, but shame burned hotter than the cold. She didn't raise her eyes. Her pride had frozen and shattered inside that warm hollow. A rescuer handed Rebecca a cup of tea, shaking his head in disbelief. The villagers who had laughed now watched in silence. Their mockery turned to awe. Rebecca met Dorothy's gaze, then pulled Charlotte close. No words were needed.
Mama, the hay saved us. Like you said.
Behind them, the haystack steamed, triumphant, while the valley's proud houses lay crushed by snow.
I called them field mice, but they survived. When I was frozen at their door, they let me in. I owe my life to Rebecca Reeves, and I am ashamed of every harsh word I ever spoke.
The village elder raised his voice. This haystack will remain as a lesson to every person here. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Those who had laughed now only nodded.
We did what we had to. A mother's duty doesn't end at ridicule.
Mama, they're not laughing anymore. They're listening.
Rebecca squeezed her daughter's hand and said nothing, but her quiet dignity spoke louder than any speech.
From this day on, I will never mock another soul. This haystack saved me, and I will honor it.
The elders nodded. The haystack rose behind them. No longer a joke, but a monument. The field mice had outlasted every house on the road, and the valley would not forget. As the snow melted, the valley rebuilt, but the haystack remained, a monument to survival. Rebecca and Charlotte walked through the village, no longer shunned but greeted with quiet nods. One morning, Dorothy appeared at the door of their new cabin, a fresh loaf in her hands.
I thought you might need bread while you settle in. It's the least I can do.
Thank you, Dorothy. Come in. We have much to talk about.
Charlotte ran outside, joining other children playing in the spring grass beside the haystack.
It's not just a haystack. It's our fortress.
Rebecca and Dorothy hung laundry, their laughter ringing out like an old hymn.
I never thought I'd say this, but I envy the peace you found here.
The haystack steamed gently in the evening light, a new legend begun from a widow's desperate gamble. Months later, when the evenings grew warm again, Rebecca sat on a hay bale as the sun bled gold across the fields.
It still feels like ours, Mama. Even with a real cabin now.
Because it is ours. The walls remember every prayer, every tear.
Footsteps rustled the grass. Dorothy approached, carrying a small lantern, and sat without a word.
I used to look at this stack and feel nothing but scorn. Now it feels like home.
The red arrow Rebecca had painted on the hollow still marked the spot where Mercy had broken through a wall of hay.
That arrow saved Miss Dorothy. And it taught everyone that hay isn't just for horses.
They sat in silence, 3 women who had stared down a blizzard and scorn, now one family. As dusk deepened, Dorothy lit her lantern and placed it inside the hollow, a quiet promise of light for any soul who might need it. The field mice had built more than a shelter. They had built a legend that would warm the valley for years to come. In the years that followed, travelers passing through the valley would pause at the sight of the haystack. They saw the faded red arrow, a quiet mark of mercy, and heard the story of the field mice. Some left small offerings at the base, a bundle of wildflowers, a few coins, a loaf of bread. Inside the hollow, someone had left a lantern, its flame shielded from the wind, burning as a testament. The haystack became a landmark, not of folly, but of the stubborn love that turns a pile of straw into a sanctuary, a symbol that humbled the proud, and a reminder that the smallest refuge can hold the greatest warmth. Rebecca and Charlotte would sometimes return at dusk, just to sit and listen to the endless whisper of the straw, and the wind, once their enemy, now seemed to carry only awe. The field mice had not only survived, they had taught the valley that the greatest fortress is sometimes just a humble, hollowed-out haystack. And if you ever pass through this valley, look for the red arrow. If there's a lantern burning, know that hope still lives inside.